Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are talking with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com, looking for possible betting value in upcoming MLB baseball cards. Right now, we're looking at the slate of games for Saturday, August 22nd. Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. You think you'll wind up having a bunch of premium picks for this card at your site?
Most definitely, because remember, we also have quite a few Saturday football games to choose from, and
Yeah.
I don't abandon baseball. We'll have baseball and football on Saturday for sure.
Well, you know my recommendation to you for giving recommendations to your clients is I wouldn't be against you just telling your clients just fade Aaron Harang every start for the rest of the year as long as he's in the lineup. He got pounded again in his last start. I'm seeing that he's scheduled to start here at Miami, and Miami is actually starting to hit a little bit better recently. They're having a bunch of games where we're game in and game out. They're putting up 5 or 6 runs against pitchers who can get hit. I'm thinking Harang, probably gets hit here again, at least 4 runs, maybe a few more. Then on the other side, Justin Nicolino, a vulnerable youngster as well, maybe a little bit more of an upside with him. Philly's starting to hit as well themselves, so I'm thinking that maybe we see an over here. I mean, in tonight's game with Philly-Miami, there's 2 vulnerable starters, Williams and Bradham, and we're seeing a total of 7.5. So maybe we'll see an 8 or 8.5 here, and we like the over. What do you think, Joe?
Well, Williams is just the opposite of Harang, where Harang got off to that phenomenal start, and Williams was just getting pounded. Now the tables are reversed. Williams is all of a sudden pitching a little bit better, but you are correct. Aaron Harang, over about the last 6-7 starts, he's been beyond awful. Just in his last 3 starts, 10.80 ERA. I think only because he pitched so well early in the year, and it's not like the Phillies have much to turn to. Of course, they traded Cole Hamels, so Harang's one of the few proven, veterans that they do have there. But you are correct. Going against Harang would seem to be a good bet. But of course, especially now that the Phillies had settled down, the first 17 games after the All-Star break, they had the best units won. Now they're kind of tailing off a little bit. But you are correct that, we'll keep an eye to see if the Phillies bats are still active by the time this game comes. Maybe the over will be a pretty solid play.
All right, and then I want to ask you about 2 starting pitchers who were excellent for most of the year, but over their last 3 starts or so have really started to put up mediocre results. I'm wondering if they're getting fatigued a little bit. First one is going to be Scott Kazmir, right? He's going to be at home against the Dodgers. Zach Greinke on the other side. Greinke is lights out right now, start in and start out. Is there any reason to expect that he won't be lights out again here against the reasonably modest Houston lineup? I'm not sure what the line's going to be here for the Dodgers or where the value might be, but Kazmir's been shaky in August, right? 17 innings, he's given up 13 runs, 7 walks, 4 homers. Houston lost all 3 of those games. Is Kazmir fading now, Joe?
It's kind of, I think, the famed Joe Duffy bubble burst theory is Scott Kazmir is a very good pitcher, but he went on that stretch where he was beyond unbelievable. I think in July he put one of the greatest ERAs in the history of the game, and he was completely unhittable. So even though he's a very good pitcher, he was still pitching way above his head. He was pitching, way above Sandy Koufax's head in his prime. He was just beyond unhittable. So now that he's come down to earth, I do think there's a little bit of a letdown for him. I do think it is definitely a little bit more mental than anything. And as you said, Greinke has been consistently unhittable all year. So I would certainly say that the Dodgers do have the pitching advantage, a good situational matchup, because, as I said, I think Kazmir just, a little bit of the wind was let out of his sail, and that's why he's struggling a little bit right now. So the Dodgers do have that pitching advantage.
All right, well, the Dodgers are going to be a pretty decent-sized road favorite. I'm not exactly sure how big it'll be, but is that a trap, or is that something you would tend to want to bet into?
Well, yeah, I don't think this is the ideal situation. Houston, not a bad team, and as we said, Kazmir is still a hell of a pitcher. He's just he's just kind of downtrending after he just went so high. So, again, Kazmir would be a pretty good pitcher if you're to have as a home underdog.
And then the other pitcher I want to ask you about, Gerrit Cole, right? Is he getting fatigued? August has been a bad month for him. He's going to be at home against San Francisco. On the other side, Chris Heston has also put up some uninspiring numbers in August. But Cole, was one of the elite pitchers in baseball for a long time this year. And, last 3 starts have not been that good. What do we expect from him here and going forward, Joe?
True, and then Heston's doing what a lot of these young rookies, these young pitchers do. He looked very good, and then as word got around on how to hit him, he's starting to struggle a little bit more. Gerrit Cole, he has pitched pretty well 3 wins and a 2.11 ERA against the San Francisco Giants. I would say probably a slight advantage to the Pirates, especially since they are playing at home, but neither one of these pitchers have been phenomenal. So it is worth at least taking a look at possibly betting the over.
All right, and then Chris Tillman, he's a guy who I've been riding pretty accurately all year long. I was fading him when he was getting crushed for most of the year. Then he started to do better. Then he had an ankle issue, and in his 2 starts back, they haven't been that great. His last start was okay in the final scheme of things, but he only struck out 3 guys, walked 3 guys, gave up 2 home runs, escaped with only giving up 2 runs, but seems like he's struggling. Seems like Minnesota's going to hit him again, and then Kyle Gibson is definitely struggling. Gotten pounded over his last 3 road starts. I'm thinking maybe we might look for an over here in Minnesota-Baltimore.
Yeah, he's allowed, Kyle Gibson's allowed 29 runs over his last 33 innings. Look, you've been the expert. People talk about there are some handicappers out there that are more team specialists and more of specialists, in conferences and football. You are the Chris Tillman specialist. You think I'm going to argue with you about Chris Tillman? No
Absolutely.
way.
I don't think you should. I feel like I have a good read on him, and I think I do. So I'll tell you what, Joe Duffy, I'm not going to be leaning towards Minnesota or Baltimore in this one. The Chris Tillman expert is going to be leaning towards the over in that one. And that might be one of those games where even if Tillman does have a great start, Kyle Gibson could get crushed and Baltimore could put up, the entire total all by themselves. All right, so my leans are, I'm going to be leaning over in Minnesota, Baltimore. I'm definitely going to be leaning for a Harang to struggle again, probably leaning towards the over in Miami, Philadelphia. And I guess that's about it for Saturday, August 22nd. What else would you think is worth noting, Joe?
Let's see. I think, we covered most. Of course, Carlos Martinez, the Cardinals are 18-4 in his starts, but betting the Cardinals, it always comes down to value, so it's not like it's top secret, but he's been very, and we didn't talk about a pitcher that I thought you would talk about. You love Andrew Haney. He's allowed 2 runs or fewer in 9 of his 10 starts this year, so he's been the mark of consistency, 2.43 ERA.
The problem with that is just that, the Angels haven't been winning in general. We know that Toronto's very effective against lefties. And Marco Estrada has, since he improved his changeup, he's been very solid and reliable this year. Definitely wouldn't want to bet against him and wouldn't want to bet against Toronto in general. So that's why I don't really want to bet against Toronto and Estrada. Don't really want to bet against Haney. That's why I passed on that game to bring up.
True, and I've said it before, and this is where I do tend to disagree with some sharp people out there. I have found, and I've looked it up and I've written articles on it, where I do think that the lefty-righty splits can be a little bit overrated. I'm not saying irrelevant, but maybe it might be a decent situation to look at the under.
Joe Duffy's final picks every day, of course, can be found at offshoreinsiders.com. Thanks, Joe.